Try to be careful about it. We did actually, Ben was there. There was a little tiny conference over at SLU with philosophers who wanted to write science fiction. Cool, right? Yeah, and everybody was masked for pretty much all.
I already did.
One person got signed. One person out of the whole. Yeah, that worked out really well. We're going to be talking a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Ooh, yes, there's a speaker back there. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. If you did not know where you are, this is Left Big Books presents Hugo, Locus, and Nebula Award winner, Mary Robinette Kowal. And tonight we will be discussing the brand new, soon-to-be incredible hit sensation, The Spare Man. And Kowal will be in conversation with St. Louis's award-winning author, Ann Leckie, also a Triple Crown winner. I am so thankful.
I won like 7 or 8 awards.
Yes.
Actually that year. Yeah, it was like a thing. Oh, so it's a Triple Crown winner? Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, just multiple upon multiple award-winning authors sitting in front of you. Yes. I am so thrilled that you are here with us this evening. If you are not familiar with Left Bank Books, we produced over 250 virtual events during the pandemic, which the virtual people watching this evening, hello and welcome. For the virtual people, if you want to type in a question as a comment, we will get to those at the end of the event, at the end of the hour, for the audience Q&A. For those of you in person, you will just be able to raise your hand and say hello, but I will give a hand for the virtual people. We will continue to produce our events as hybrid events for as long as possible, as long as people keep showing up to them, because it is important that events be accessible, and this is one way of making that happen. So thank you all so much for supporting Left Bank Books, for supporting our event series. Be sure to check out our event calendar on left-bank.com. And I guess I should say, I'm Shane Mullen, the event coordinator. Also just big fan. Big fan. Yeah. Mary Robinette Kowal is the author of The Spare Man, the Glamourist Histories series, Ghost Talkers, and my personal favorite, the Lady Astronaut Universe. She is part of the award-winning podcast Writing Excuses and has received the Astounding Award for Best New Writer, 4 Hugo Awards, the Nebula and Locus Awards. You gotta get to it, sorry.
Like make a Locust Award.
Also the winner of the Shane T. Mullen Fan Award, yes. Her stories appear in Asimov's Uncanny and several years' best anthologies. Mary Robinette, a professional puppeteer, also performs as a voice actor, SAG-AFTRA, recording fiction for authors including Seanan McGuire, Cory Doctorow, and John Scalzi. She lives in Nashville with her husband Rob and over a dozen manual typewriters. Visit MaryRobinetteKowal.com. And I will say before I introduce our other fantastic guest for the evening, I credit Mary Robinette for basically opening my eyes to how fantastic science fiction is. So if you have any friends in your life that are like I read some in high school and I didn't really, it wasn't for me and it's been 20 years, it's a different world. It's a much better world. It's a really exciting world, the world of sci-fi. And Mary Robinette opened my eyes and I will forever be in debt. Tonight, Mary Robinette will be in conversation with St. Louis's incredible Ann Leckie. Ann is the author of the Hugo, Nebula, Arthur C. Clarke, and British Science Fiction Award-winning novel Ancillary Justice. She has worked as a waitress, a receptionist, a rodman on a land surveying crew, and a recording engineer. And she lives right here in St. Louis, Missouri. Without further ado, I want to read this incredible praise. So the Library Journal, I know, I just want to take up all this time and just make certain that they know how fantastic they are. Kowal's Comedy of Manners sci-fi mystery is a rollicking case of knowing when to throw decorum out the window in order to get results. Highly recommended for anyone who loves a good mystery in an out-of-this-world setting, and that is a starter review from the Library Journal that I adore. Without further ado, now would you help me in welcoming our fantastic guests for the evening, Mary Robinette Kowal and Leckie.
That was really nice. Hi, Anne.
Hi, it's been ages.
I
It's been
know.
so long.
This is really exciting for both of us. We haven't seen each other since the before times. So we were downstairs catching up, and I was like, can we just talk this evening? And she's like, you should maybe read something. Okay.
You should read something. So then they'll know how awesome the book is.
Well, I mean, Shane just told them. She really had told me today. Let me tell you how the evening's gonna flow. I am gonna read to you from The Spare Man. We will have some conversation. We'll take questions from the people here and the people here. And then the other thing is that I have, you all got your boarding package. And for those of you who are online, if you didn't get a boarding package, if you order a book from Left Bank Books, you will get a boarding package that includes a brochure about the ship, your ticket to Mars, an invitation to the captain's dinner, and a luggage tag and a door hanger so that the porter will know not to disturb you. But we are also giving away a gimlet, and I'm just gonna go show the people here a little better.
Gimlet, the wonderful service dog.
So I just said we're giving away a gimlet. We are giving away 2 gimlets. One gimlet goes to someone in the audience here, physically here, and one gimlet we're going to mail to somebody. So if you would like a gimlet, there are 2 ways you can get a gimlet.
Unless, do you have a way?
Uh,
Do you have a standard way? Because otherwise I've got to make up one.
So you're not going to tell them they need to mix lime juice with gin?
That is exactly what they need to do. Well, unless they want a zero proof gimlet, in which case they can just do lime juice and tonic water.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, lime juice, tonic water. It's basically, you turn it into a really neat limeade. I forgot to ask if you all have a standard way you do giveaways.
in a box.
How you choose the winner of the game, or choose the fortunate person. I'm saying
We
winner.
do have a randomized, but
Great. Randomly, according to the methods of Left Bank Books, who already has a mechanism that we will utilize, we are giving away 2 gimlets tonight. I'm going to encourage you, we're going to pretend that one of the ways is by asking a question, but I'm sure that is actually not involved in randomized thing.
We haven't done it for in person though. Yeah, we had to randomize several giveaways by
Yeah.
Instagram. So in
Yeah.
person, we should do whatever you want to do.
So in person, you all have a ticket to Mars in your boarding package. If you purchased a book, you got a ticket to Mars. If you did you not get a boarding package? Did anyone?
I pre-ordered my books.
Okay, if you
Shane to
pre-ordered,
the rescue. Shane.
Yes.
Did you pre-order? Or
This
did you-
person with the red hair, with the
Yeah,
lovely
if
red
you-
hair requires
if
one.
you pre-ordered your book, Shane is about to hand you a boarding package.
Oh, you.
That is really a lovely color hair.
So at the end of the evening, we're gonna look at our tickets, and then we will find our winner. All right, this gimlet is so soft, by the way. Cannot even express how soft gimlet is. All right, so I am going to read to you from chapter 2. And what you need to know at this point is that we are, my protagonist and her husband are on their honeymoon. I think most of the things come up in the chapter, but you will hear, let's get this wrong. DBPS, deep brain pain suppressor. Because Tesla has chronic pain, she had an injury many years ago and has a device that suppresses the pain. So when I say DBPS, that's what it means. I think everything else should be self-explanatory in this cutting. Oh, also every chapter begins with a cocktail recipe. And there are 0 proof cocktail recipes. Okay, Boulevardier, 1.5 ounces bourbon, 1 ounce sweet vermouth, 1 ounce Campari, orange peel, cherry. Stir ingredients over ice for 40 seconds, drain. Garnish with twist of orange peel and a cherry. The doors to the exclusive yacht club portion of the ship hissed open on the concierge lounge. Shal waggled his finger at her, his craft bag bouncing with the motion. I object to being called biased. You're wounding my professional pride. I'm just gonna stand up to do this. First of all, you're retired. Second, being a detective has nothing to do with karaoke. Third, you're biased by definition. You're married to me. Pish, tosh, tut, tut. He made outrageous hemming and hawing noises. Your Honor, I would note that you are the only person who got an encore. She laughed in his face. That was not an encore. I was interrupted and they let me start again. Behind the concierge desk, Aubrey leapt to their feet, tailcoat flapping behind them, with an alertness that gave no indicator of it being 2 a.m. ship's time. Their aubergine surfer's forelock arced over their left brow like a wave. Mixera, Miss Husband, oh, pardon for this. They gestured behind themselves to the concierge office, and the cadence of their lunar French accent intensified with distress. I have here your petite dog. Tesla went to instant alert. Is she okay? Oui, yes, oh, yes, she is well, but she has in some sort of way escaped of your stateroom. I have found her here in the lobby. Charles squeezed Tesla's arm. I'll go clear the room. He hesitated and handed her his craft bag. Would you mind? It's not no problem. She took the bag because she couldn't honestly say that the open door wasn't a problem. She'd had stalkers get into her hotel rooms before. Even traveling incognito, even traveling in the most expensive, most exclusive part of the ship, someone could still get in if they bribed the right person. Thank you. She flashed a smile at her spouse's back as he walked down the ridiculous golden promenade to the hall where their stateroom was. Encased in an amber resin floor, yellow LEDs sparkled on embedded crystals that looked like discards from a new Vegas chandelier. It was the sort of thing one did to impress new money. Sighing, Tesla crossed the lobby to Aubrey's desk. I hope Gimlet wasn't a bother. Not at all. I used a matter printer to make a leash for her safety. She is very loved. Pirouetting, they rushed to the office door and opened it. Oh! A little bark was all the warning that Tesla got, and then her dog burst out of the office and around the corner, trailing a leash. The Westie's entire back end was wagging as she ran. Gimlet jumped onto her hind legs, stretching her forelegs up onto Tesla's thighs. Everything from the wideness of her eyes to the frantic little half-twists spoke of her anxiety. Don't worry, I've got her. Crouching with a straight back, Tesla gathered her little white dog in her arms. Oh, sweetness, hello, Gimlet. Yes. The wiggles and kisses from the little dog made Tesla regret leaving her. Gimlet was trained to go everywhere with Tesla. Being left behind probably made her feel like she'd done something wrong. She eased Gimlet to the ground, rubbing her ears with both hands. Hello, perfect girl. Mommy is very stupid. It's not your fault. This must be an error with our housekeeping staff. Aubrey had reappeared at the desk in their usual spot. I will. Someone screamed. It wasn't Shao, but it came from the Golden Promenade. Call for help. Tesla tightened her grip on Gimlet's leash. Gimlet, heel. With the little dog at her side, Tesla ran down the Golden Promenade, nearly stumbling to her knees as her back sent a line of white down her right leg. Gimlet got in front of her and put a paw on her calf, signaling her to stop and take a moment. She couldn't. Not until she knew Shao was safe. Gimlet, release. Hitting the override on the DBPS to push it past the safeties, Tesla shoved off the wall. Gimlet, heel. The DBPS gave its standard caution about numbness and other possible side effects of overuse. She had long practice at ignoring those warnings. Overhead, the shipboard speakers said, Delta Gamma 559er. Repeat, Delta Gamma 559er. Beneath her feet, the golden promenade jogged to obscure the curve of the ship, and she braced herself on the wall as she rounded the corner. The sparkle floor gave way to carpet and a subdued hall lined with weird cruise art. At the end, it turned to her left again, and she entered the tree-lined hall of the Grand Royal Suites. And halfway down the hall, Shal was lowering someone to the floor. A shock of red, red shock of blood coated the front of their white dinner jacket. Even at this distance, the difference between blood and red wine was painfully clear. Shal looked up as Tesla knelt next to him. Stay with them, I saw someone. It was the blonde from the karaoke bar, the one that had been in the fight before. A knife stuck out of their chest, buried up to its wooden hilt. As Shal bounded to his feet, she didn't have time to ask him who he saw, and her focus needed to be on the passenger. He shoved the service door open and she said, "Be careful," after him, knowing he would ignore it. Gimlet down, Gimlet stay. What little she remembered from Girl Guides told her that taking the knife out would make the bleeding worse. She couldn't tell the passenger that everything would be okay, so she settled for narrating everything she was doing as a way of trying to be reassuring. Hey, so I'm going to try to make the bleeding stop, okay? Tesla dumped the contents of Shal's craft bag on the floor. The bag had a hydrophobic self-cleaning overlay, and theoretically, she hoped it would be impermeable to blood, too. She wrapped the blue linen around the wound, trying not to jostle the knife. As she did, her skin brushed the passengers, and at the intimate contact, their online systems did a handshake, offering identification, which she accepted in exchange for her fake ID. George Saikawa, she, her. Saikawa's eyes were rolling in her head. Her mouth gaped open like a fish. Tesla grimaced and leaned down to Saikawa. Hey, George! George, look at me. Look at, good. Terrible way to meet, but I'll be right here with you until the medics come. Hey, look at me. Come on. Help is on the way. Doors up and down the hall opened. In her peripheral vision, Tesla felt people step out into the hall and heard the gawking begin. Blood seeped through the field of flowers on the embroidery bag. It stuck to Tesla's hands and trickled between her fingers. Tesla lifted her head, scanning the wealthy fools who clotted the hall for someone helpful. Some people were staring at her, some at the person lying on the floor, and one person was making eyes at Gimlet. Jesus, people, someone get a towel or something. She looked back down at the stabbing victim, whose eyes had closed. No. Hey, don't you dare die. I will not allow that. Coming through. A service entrance 2 doors down, slammed open, and a medical kit burst out, masked and gloved, carrying a full kit and a medical mover. Tesla looked up and shouted, "Over here!" The one in the lead spotted Tesla, or more accurately, the blood, and dropped to their knees next to her. What happened here? I didn't see it, just that she'd been stabbed. That was all I had. Candy, prep an X-14 protocol. The doctor peeled the bag away with bright blue gloves and discarded it in a biohazard bag, where their colleague positioned the orange med kit over the knife wound. Friend or family? Bystander, never met. Good job. They did a double take at Gimlet. What's a dog doing here? She's my service dog. Tesla wanted to rest her hand on Gimlet's back, but her hands were sticky with blood. The doctor grunted, and it was hard to read their expression behind the mask. As the orange med kit extended a spider's worth of probes, they produced a pair of shears and sliced the tuxedo shirt open. The machine responded to some command and settled over Saikawa, lights flashing. I need you to move back. Tesla nodded, but neither of the medics paid any attention to her. Gimlet, heel. She stood up, and Gimlet moved with her as if the dog were an extension of her own body. Tesla tugged the hem of her skirt down before she remembered the blood coating her hands. Well, it wasn't as though she kept the blood off the skirt up to this point anyway, and naturally this one was too expensive to have self-cleaning fibers. She'd have to have it laundered. Bracing Bracing on the wall, Tesla scanned the hall for Shao, knowing he wasn't there. At her feet, Gimlet put a paw on her calf, and Tesla nodded in appreciation of the reminder. A panic attack right now wouldn't help anything. She inhaled for a count of 4, held it, exhaled on a 4 count. Keeping her breathing slow, she studied the corridor again. About a dozen people stood in the hall, not quite willing to abandon the spectacle and return to bed. 3 wore courtesy masks, either due to germs, fashion, or to protect themselves from cameras. She took snaps of faces with her online system in case Shao needed to ask them questions later. A leggy blonde passenger with a full beard and a fantastic purple muumuu. The curvy older crooner from the karaoke lounge. Twins with matching dark shaved heads. She pinged Shao. Update? Me Shao husband is offline. Well, shit. Things go down from there. Thanks.
So when is this out? It's already out.
It came out last Tuesday.
It came out last Tuesday. Okay, I wasn't sure how long, what the chances were that anybody could actually read all the way through.
According to my mentions, a shocking number of people have at this point.
So I think partly I'm biased because my parents were huge detective novel fans, and so I grew up reading quite a few of them. They had no respect for science fiction, but that's a whole thing in and of itself. But detective novels and science fiction go really well together, I think a lot of times people think that, you can make things up, so it's cheating, but it's not like that at all, is it? Yeah. So what made you think that a detective novel was the place you wanted to be? Was there something specific, or was it?
I think it was honestly that I was rewatching the Thin Man movies. I'm like, oh, this but in space.
I wondered about Gimlet, if Gimlet was asked.
Yeah, it is 100% Nick and Nora in space. Yeah, but specifically William Powell and Myrna Loy.
Yeah,
like if I had my dream casting, this would actually be Myrna Loy and Oscar Isaac.
Ooh, yeah.
That would be my dream casting on this.
I can see that.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah, and Gimlet is a real dog. Gimlet is based on 2 dogs, 3, Asta. But the author Eileen Cook, who's a fantastic mystery and YA suspense writer, has a real Westie named Gimlet. And I was at her house trying to, while I was in the outlining phase of the book in the before times, and I was like, yeah, I have to name the dog, and Astro feels like it's too on the nose, and then Gimlet runs through, and Gimlet. It is the perfect name for a book that is filled with drinking. And then the other dog is my mom's service dog, Captain. And when they gave us Captain, they said, he's a dog, not a robot. That is an accurate statement.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad to have my suspicions about Asta and the Thin Man verified. My parents would be thrilled with that. They might even actually read a science fiction book and say, well, I guess this is good.
The first, I said that each chapter begins with a cocktail recipe, and the first chapter begins with martini because that's how the movie version of the Thin Man opens. Well, it's the first time you see Nick Charles with him teaching bartenders how to make a martini.
And he's a stirred, not shaken person.
No, he's a shaken person. It's important. The key to making a good martini or any drink is the rhythm. So a martini is shaken to a foxtrot, but what is shaken to a waltz? No, I can't remember.
I don't know, all the martini variations, you've got your Rob Roy and your old fashioned and your Gimlet, which I think of as a martini variation.
Yeah, I do too. But that's how he opens the Thin Man. He says that it's all about the rhythm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's martini, and then there's another one that is to the, I can't remember what that one is now. I've only watched them 5 times.
They were favorites of my parents as well. Yeah. So cruise ship, now I know you've been, and I know you say this in your note at the end of the book, and I suspected it anyway when I was reading. There's been real cruise ships in
Yes.
your life, and so, and of course, they're fabulous settings for murder mysteries because they're a large population, but it's also constrained,
Mhm.
right? So you know who you're dealing with, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the, and I do say this at the back of the book, but one of the things that was really delightful on the last cruise that I was on in the Four Times, which was like September of 2019, was that I got to sit down with the head chef for the cruise that we were on and sit down and talk through how you murder people on a cruise ship. Like, I only got to use a fraction of the things we talked about, mostly dealing with service corridors and how kitchens are stacked so that certain things are stacked on top of each other. But I'm like, oh, I really hope this book sells well because I need them to do a return trip. Because now I know how you stow away on a ship. And like, I've got all of these different ways that would be super easy to kill someone on a cruise ship and get away with it.
Actually, you want them to not get away with it. Exercise.
Well, yes.
But you want them to think they could get away
I
with
want
it
them to think they
plausibly.
could, yes, I want them to plausibly believe they could get away with it.
Yeah, and I have to say, this person's scheme was pretty schemy. Yeah, it was a nice scheme.
Thank you. I was very proud of that one.
Yeah, you should be, that was good.
Thanks.
I can't say more, for those of you who have not read the book, you just need to read the book.
I have to say that, not surprising anyone, because I don't feel like it's a spoiler to say that there's more than one body drop. Because that's a thing in the
The
genre.
expectations of the genre.
Yeah, but there's one murder in particular that I am very proud of.
I can guess which one that is too. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, world building, right?
Mhm.
So how far in the future is this?
It's 2075.
2075. So some things are going to be the same, but some things aren't. And so I noticed it was interesting. It was in the section that you read from, which is self-cleaning fabrics, which is awesome. Man, what I wouldn't get for self-cleaning fabrics, but they're cheaper than non-self-cleaning fabrics, which is an interesting choice. That's and I think I can see what's behind it, but
And we should just talk about fashion in general, because I write historical stuff and look at historical things, and one of the things that you see over and over again is that when a new technology comes in, it is first just the province of the very, very wealthy. And then it becomes mass produced and anyone can have it. And so the wealthy people reject it and have to demonstrate that they don't have this. So one of the other things that happens in the book is that sorry, I will point out the cover which you all have in your laps. So in the cover, they're wearing clothes that absolutely do not appear anywhere in the books. Yes, someday. But what is fancy, one of the things that you'll see is that someone is wearing carefully distressed, it's like distressed jeans. You go and you buy jeans that are distressed now. I was in a department store and they had this jacket that was like $500, no, they were a pair of jeans. It was also jeans. It was a $500 pair of jeans covered with paint spatters. And I'm like, those are literally what my jeans looked like when I was a broke art major. So one of the things that wealthy people will do at a certain point is that they will cosplay poor people. And so what fancy clothes in the future is that you are wealthy enough that you don't need self-cleaning fibers because you can have it cleaned or you can just replace it. And then people who want to look like they are that wealthy have self-cleaning fibers that that then have an artful grass stain on it, or an artful coffee spill on it. And I was like, and I cannot have my passenger, I can't, if I have them on the cover with a grass stain, it says something different to a modern reader. So when it came in with the jacket and the suit, I'm like, this says luxury, this is, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's your point about rich people costuming poor people is really an interesting one, especially since when poor people wear the clothes that rich people wear an imitation of, they are not treated respectfully at all. But when rich people wear them, they're wearing fashion.
Yes.
It's really super interesting how that works out. I've also, the thing about the thought that I had about the self-cleaning fabrics was that very often fashions, especially for rich people, are about showing that you don't have to work.
Yes, that was the other piece of it.
High heels, sleeves that go down over your fingers, the way suntans go back and forth depending on whether everybody works indoors or everybody works outdoors, right? Self-cleaning fabrics might show that you need to have your fabric self-cleaning because you're busy working for a living, but if you're rich enough,
Someone else does that.
somebody else will do that
Yeah.
laundry for you.
And that's why it says she would need to have it cleaned, not that she would need to wash it.
Because she's not doing her own laundry, yeah.
Did you think about that with the gloves in Ancillary Justice?
To a certain extent, although I didn't go into it as much as I could have. The way that if you're very wealthy, your gloves are going to be perfect and unspotted and you're going to have multiple pairs and people cleaning them up. If you're poor, you're going to have grubby gloves. But I didn't go into it as much as I could have. But yeah, it was something that I was thinking of.
Yeah, it was a piece that I feel like it's in there some.
It's in there some, but I wasn't really focusing on
Yeah,
it. But it's definitely,
You
yeah.
had a lot. There was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I love fashion as in marking in group versus out group.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a thing that Prada says, which is that fashion is instant language. That you can, and I can't remember the full quote, but it's fashion is instant language, that you can quickly tell things about a person based on how they're dressed. And it's really easy for people to go, oh, I don't care what I wear. And that is in itself a privilege.
Right.
It's a privilege marker that you can be someone who doesn't care about what they wear.
It also isn't actually true.
It is also not completely true.
Putting on clothes is very much putting on a series of class markers and identification certifications, right? And to some extent, we're not conscious of it, but we all do it. And we'll assess other people's class presentation depending on how they're dressed and how their hair is cut and all these other things. But it's something that I don't think people articulate very often, but we all do it.
Yeah.
Every one of us does it. When we choose our clothes, when we get dressed to go to work, when we, I guess its most blunt and obvious manifestation is I'm going to work, so I'm going to wear work clothes.
Yes.
I'm going to church, I'm going to wear church clothes. I'm going to the bar, I'm going to wear my going out to the bar clothes.
I'm going to a con.
Right. Oh, yeah. Don't we all have our clothes that we specifically wear to cons?
And
Right.
then like your approach, you're like, am I heading the right way to get to the hotel? Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. I have had that experience. I go, oh no, those are con people. Okay.
Yep. They don't have a badge, but I am definitely following the right group of people. Yep. Yeah, I have never been wrong about that.
No, because it's just so,
Yeah.
and I would bet most of the people didn't say, now I'm gonna put on the clothes that will show everybody around me that I'm going to a science fiction convention. They just said, oh, now I'm gonna get dressed.
Yeah. I mean, I have been wrong about people who have, who show up and look like they are wearing like business clothes, like people who are still in
The professionals, quote
the
unquote.
professionals, yeah.
Yeah, writers and editors are more likely to actually not be wearing quite the same uniform.
Uniform.
Yeah, uniform isn't the right word,
No,
but
yeah.
garb might be too correct.
Yeah, okay, fair. Yeah.
No, but I like your fashion in the book. You've got your leggy blonde with the moo. Man, moo-moos could stand to come back in. It's so comfortable.
They're
We've all
so-
been hanging around in our jammy pants for the past 3 years, right? Haven't we?
Yeah.
Haven't we? We could have moo-moos come back
And I
in.
feel like muumuus can definitely be something that is a gender neutral garment.
Oh,
They're just
yeah.
like, it's just like this is, I'm just gonna lounge in this and then flip through and look fabulous.
Right, right. Yeah.
So that's actually an interesting one, because I had a sensitivity reader who was working with me on the gender stuff, because I had a certain amount of programming, you know, and was had flagging places where I was using stereotypes or gender markers that may have been unintentional ones. I think just flagging any place I was doing a gender marker.
They're so hard to get away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, oh my goodness, you must have,
Well, that's why I made the choice that I did,
yeah,
was because it just went whoosh, they're all gone.
yeah. But still there are things that, did you have to make decisions in your own head? I'll come back to the memo in a second, but did you have to make decisions in your own head about, in places where people were gendered and,
So I had started out trying to write a draft where I had assigned binary genders to the characters. And so I had the luxury of just smearing it all
okay,
when I made my choice to just use default feminine for everybody.
got it.
And it became less visible in the next 2 books, of course, because of the social situation.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I did a cheat, right? And then everybody was like, oh, this is really innovative. I'm like, no, I was just cheating.
I love cheating. That's how I feel about having a sensitivity reader. It's like, oh, yeah, someone else can be smart about this. But with the leggy blonde, or with the blonde with the full beard and the fabulous purple moo, that was originally I think it was leggy blonde with a full beard and a pair of fabulous heels. And yeah, and my sensitivity reader was like, this is a common stereotype and that of when like this is 100% a thing that exists in the world. You know, someone who's got a full beard and heels, but it is also something that will often appear where someone for comedic effect, where someone wants to shock the audience when it's handled in fiction. So there's the difference between real life perception and fictional perception on the page. And they recommended that I pick a different garment. And I was like, moo, fabulous purple moo.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah. And then I was like, moo is everywhere now.
So what other, so you did a lot, actually, you talk a lot about the clothes that people are wearing. So what other thought processes, I speak English, I swear I do.
It's okay, as long as you write English, that's.
Yeah, allegedly. Thought processes did you go through to design? Because that's really tough to do. It's really easy to just say, oh, everybody's gonna wear jeans and t-shirts and sweaters, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, nah, 100 years from now, maybe not so much, right?
Yeah, so that was part of why I went 50 years out, there were a number of reasons that I went about 50 years out, but one of them is that things are slightly more predictable. There's a cycle that we go through in the real world with fashion, where we swing from a fascination with the artifice to a fascination with the natural. So you go from like Rococo into the Regency, Regency into Victorian, which is fascination with artifice. I'm just glossing over but Victorian into Edwardian, which is a fascination with the natural. That's when all of the national parks get built. That's when we have the arts and crafts movement. So more recently, it's been atomic age, hippies, the 80s. But the information age, then the buy local movement, and now we were going into like fascination with artifice, with information age, and not information, with Internet of Things. Pandemic is kind of, I don't know, all bets are off right now.
Nature is healing.
Nature's healing, yes. So because it's a 20 to 40 year swing, what I basically looked at was thinking about where they would be, and that they would probably be coming into, that they would be swinging back into a fascination with natural. Hence but look, my garments are stained and everything is, and I have, this is too expensive to be, these are all natural fibers, and Shal is doing the embroidery. Like one of the things that he does all the way through the book is he's embroidering garments. It's not just he's doing decorative, hang on the wall stuff, but he's adding decoration to his garments, which is again a class marker and a leisure activity. The lawyer Fontaine is crocheting all the way through as a form of, like, it's a weaponized crocheting. But again, it's because I thought that they would be in a similar place to where we are now. It's just, thinking about, so thinking about that. And so one of the things that I did was that I put older people into things that were much more fascination with the artifice. So a lot of the older people are like, and here are all of my sequins. And so things like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I hadn't thought about the back and forth between natural and artifice. I know that there's, like, thinking back even 50 years, the kinds of things that we all would have been wearing 50 years ago at a bookstore reading, we would not be dressed like this. No, much more formally. And now it's perfectly fine to just wear jeans and a sweater in places where you would have dressed up. You would have worn jeans and a sweater every day, and then you would have actually dressed up to get on an airplane.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, but what's also interesting is that what we think of as dressing up, they did not necessarily think it was dressing up.
that's also true.
Like wearing gloves was just part of the uniform. Like I feel naked now when I walk out the door without a mask on. That's a new thing.
Mhm.
That was actually one of the fashion things that I had to do in the book, was that I started writing the book before the pandemic. And I had to go back in and add masks because I cannot imagine a future anymore where people don't at least occasionally have masks on. It also felt very Eurocentric to imagine a future without masks, because in Asia, people wearing masks, it's like, oh, we should have always been doing this in our fiction for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking more about epidemiology. If nothing else.
Yeah, it's really like just the number of places where I'm like, oh yeah, they would have been wearing masks, wouldn't they? Like, I love with abandon Sarah Pensker's
Song for a New Day.
Song for a New Day.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's so good.
If you haven't read it out there, read Sarah Pensker's Song for a New Day.
It's a fantastic book.
Just read Sarah Pensker.
Sarah Pensker in general, but it comes out like right at the beginning of the pandemic, or right at the tail, like it's right then that it comes out, and it is set 10 or 20 years after an epidemic, and there's plastic dividers that still are in booths from when this pandemic happened. There's all of these things. Nobody wears masks, and it's like everything else felt so like people are afraid of touching, people keep social distance, there's too many people in this space. Everything else felt spot on. And that was the one thing that I was like, oh yeah, you would have done that differently, wouldn't you? That's like when with mine, the Relentless Moon, there's a polio outbreak. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have anybody wearing masks.
Although I don't know if the polio outbreak that actually, there was a real polio outbreak.
There was, but the medical staff would have had masks.
Would have had masks.
Yeah, they did understand the utility of
Well, I knew they understood it, But I'm remembering, I've been thinking a lot about, speaking about mysteries, I had been reading Dorothy Sayers, right? And noticing, which I'd read her before, but noticing in retrospect the way that the 1918 flu is woven through those texts. Right?
Oh,
It's really interesting because you see the signs of it all
Yeah, yeah.
over, all over. In fact, in one of the books, it's a plot point that somebody is down and nearly dies of the flu.
you know,
Uh,
I had this realization with It's a Wonderful Life.
yeah,
The druggist's son, the telegram that he gets, he has died of the flu. And you look at the date on it and it is 1918. And I was like, I didn't notice that.
oh, I assumed it was the war. I assumed it was the First World War.
No, the telegram is that his, that's what I had thought too, but it's like,
It's
that his,
Yeah.
it says specifically that he has died of the flu.
And the thing that's interesting, and I haven't looked as closely at it as maybe I could have, but there was a very similar push and pull about masks. A lot of people were like, we should wear masks. And then a lot of people were like, I'm not gonna wear any masks. And at least when I was a kid, almost every public school, and the school that I went to, which was not a public school, was radiator heated. In the winter, it would be so hot that you would have to open the windows. And I did not realize until the past few years that was on purpose. It was to force you to open the windows in the winter because of the flu, because of the 1918 flu.
Yeah, it was not to force you to, it was they assumed that you would.
Right, well, yeah,
Yeah, but same thing,
same thing. And so it's interesting to me, the polio epidemic comes along and people know to wear masks, as you say, people don't wear masks.
Yeah.
So many kids die.
Well, they
Um,
also didn't know how it was spread.
But the polio,
Yeah,
yeah,
and-
the flu
and-
they did, I
yeah.
mean,
And it was not airborne.
which makes a difference.
Yeah.
Did
Did you know that's where sleepaway camps come from?
No, I didn't know that's where sleepaway camps come from.
Yeah. Yeah, sleepaway camps appear in the 1950s because polio was happening in cities.
Right. I know they closed swimming pools.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was happening in cities and so people were trying to get their kids out of the cities.
I did not know that. That's really interesting. Yeah. The things that epidemics change about society,
Yeah.
but the changes don't last. That's another, just as we get the huge number of anti-vax folks, I mean, there's other things behind it than this, but we are now living in a generation where most of the people who actually experience folks with polio are not here, right?
Okay, except, do you know about post-polio syndrome?
I do.
Okay.
But many of those folks, like I knew people who still had the effects of polio,
Yeah.
but many of those people are gone.
Yeah, that's true. I know, I mean, I still know someone with the effects of polio. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
So there's, yeah.
but it is rare. It's starting again.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was doing Relentless Nerd, the two things that startled me were one, every chapter of that book started with a newspaper headline, which were usually real newspaper headlines that I would just adjust a little bit for timeline. And there was one that I was like, which was Chicago banned the use of the polio vaccine. And it's just like, more things change, but
Yeah.
more they stay the same.
Yep, absolutely. But I've found the 1918 stuff to be super
Yeah.
interesting. And then as you say, we don't know how it's passed, but we can guess. It makes sense to put on masks
Yeah.
if you don't know.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, but people are like, no.
Yeah, I think at a certain point they did realize that it was not, they actually, no, I take this back. They spent a long time thinking that it was transmitted, do I have this right? There was this whole period of time when they were working on vaccines where they were going down the wrong path because I don't remember this well enough. I mean, it's something about primates and the way this particular primate processed things so that they thought that it was
airborne?
They thought it was airborne or going through the nose. Yeah, thought it was going
I
through
have
the
to be honest, it's because it's been so long, even though I did in my youth know people who had had polio, I don't know how it's transmitted. I have all my polio vaccines and I don't,
It's fecal matter.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, fecal matter and vomit. It's basically, it's all
It's
GI
one of
tract.
those, yeah.
All GI tract.
Well, you'd think that'd be not difficult to avoid. Going out to the country isn't gonna fix that.
No.
Yeah.
And it was also like there were 4 different strains. One of them is like, you get a little bit sick and it was not pleasant. And one of them you'd get up in the morning, you'd be fine, you'd get a headache and you were dead by night. It was just terrifying.
Yeah.
That was one of the controversies about that particular, one of the vaccines was that it had a weakened form of that particular strain.
And everybody was sure it would kill you and change your genetic material and insert a microchip in your brain and not.
Like, they were like, it's gonna invent a microchip.
It don't exist, but it's going to invent one. Yeah, that is super interesting.
Yeah. The thing, like, I did think about this when I was doing this experiment and had added the masks. And then I was like, because it was still 2020 when I was finishing it. I wound up finishing it in 2021 because I just slowed way back down. I thought about adding it and then I was like, we'll have to make so many guesses and it will make people paranoid in ways that are not necessary, but post-polio syndrome is that 20 years after you have polio, it reactivates in your body. And so you can have recovered, led a normal adult healthy life, and then it'll reactivate and you get paralysis. Shingles is chickenpox that reactivates in your body. And so the thing that I'm like, this is all fine, but we don't know what 20 years from now is going to look like. And I thought about putting that into the book and I was like, we do not know. And there are too many variables and nothing may happen.
Yeah.
So I decided not to, but I'm like in another book at some point that is doing something that is 20 years after a plague where it reactivates in the body in ways that are, I'm sorry for all of the nightmares I've just given you. I'm so sorry about that. It's fine. There's no evidence that this is going to do anything like that.
No,
Like other coronaviruses don't do this kind of thing.
Actually, my money would be on it being more like the influenza epidemic, which is where it left a lot of people with permanent disabilities. And so you read fiction from that era and it's like, so-and-so had weak health.
Yeah.
And now you look back and you're like,
Lungs weakened after flu.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't know. That's hard, but I am glad you went and put the masks in, but I suspect going back to add other following
Just like,
consequences,
it's too much.
we would change the structure of the book and,
yeah, I was like, too many guesses, not,
And plus, it's not our business to predict. It's not really our business to predict.
no, that's not, and this particular book also is like, I wanted it to be a lighthearted romp for murder. Look, isn't this fun? We've just killed people.
Yeah.
Should we do audience questions?
Yeah, let's do some audience questions. Audiences always have good questions.
Yeah.
It's always cool.
So for those people online, I'm going to go ahead and remind you that you should start typing your questions now if you haven't already typed them in. And we know that there is a lag, so don't worry, we will get to you.
A lot of talk about the cruises.
Yes,
What's the best way to kill somebody on a cruise ship that you did not use?
allergies.
It's like peanuts or something.
So turns out that you have to fill out what your allergies are before you get on the cruise. And that is given to your waiter, but it's printed out and like before the cruise and all of this. So I'm, who knows if I will write this book, but here's what I would do. Head chef pulls up his email, and then he has to do the rounds in the morning. He has to go to 11 different kitchens to check in. The ability to get into his email while he's doing those rounds is actually pretty easy because multiple chefs have to have access to that because they have to be able to pull up those cards to see what those allergies are. So getting in and changing the card on what someone's allergies are would be really simple and would be really easy to do without leaving a trace.
Although it would help if you were part of the kitchen staff or understood how the kitchen was operating.
Yes.
I've
so-
often thought how easy it is, this may be less the case, but if you are a member of a waitstaff or used to being a member of waitstaff, you can walk into almost any building with a kitchen and nobody will question you. I did not say that in public.
It is definitely true. And also, I have definitely not said in public that the easiest way to get onto a cruise ship is through the produce because the produce deliveries are, it's a different set of people every time. It's frequently, but often it's a different set of people. And the produce is going into a climate controlled region of the ship that does not get a lot of foot traffic. And I also definitely didn't say that some of the cruise lines have a yellow bandana that the new kitchen staff wears. So everybody is like, oh, you're from a different kitchen? It's like, yeah, I just got sent over here for training.
I will say in public that I really think kitchens in schools and kitchens in institutional places should really keep a better handle on security because I have been appalled in my career at how easy it is to just walk into a building that every other door is completely locked.
Yeah.
George is asking, is this book set in the future of the Lady Astronaut series?
It is not. This is a totally different universe. Actually, let me repeat that because I just realized you do not have a microphone. So the question was, is this set in the universe of the Lady Astronaut series? And it is not. It's a totally different universe.
Okay, so next question from the virtual audience, unless, do we want to alternate? Yes.
When you're world building, how do you decide to stop? At what point do you decide I have enough? There's other aspects that I'm going to ignore for now.
When I'm ready to start writing, which sounds, it doesn't, I mean, that sounds very glib, but what I mean is that there, when I understand enough of the world that, like the broad strokes of the world, and enough for me to be able to dive in, most of the details of the world are set dressing. And those I can like square bracket in and come back and clean up later. If I think of it as basically I think of it as research, but my own brain is the research bank. And so when I have enough of an understanding of the story that I'm like, ooh, I want to start writing now, I will start writing. And then if I hit something where I'm like, oh, I didn't think that through, I'll stop and check my reference library, or I'll make a note to myself. It's like, figure out what fashion from 20 years ago looks like. Actually, sorry, one other thing. Yes. There's an example of this in the book because I say at one point, because sometimes what I will do is I will make a note and then I'll come back and remove square brackets. And there's a line in there someplace where it says she was wearing pants from like that were 20 years out of fashion, or from her youth or something like that. And that was originally square brackets where I was going to come back and define what those looked like. And I got to it, I was like, no one cares. What they need to know is that to the person who is looking at it, it's old fashioned.
We have a series of Fontaine questions. So the first, well, I'm going to do these out of order because this is what I thought of as well. Was anyone else thinking of Fontaine from Les Mis? So was that an inspiration? And Jen asks the question, Fontaine is absolutely one of my favorite characters in the book for so many reasons, including the weaponized crocheting and the super creative swearing. Did you draw on any particular inspiration for her?
So the two questions, to repeat those, was Fontaine inspired by Les Mis? No, but as soon as the name hit the page, I was like, oh, someone's going to think about Les Mis, and I decided that I was comfortable with that. My headcanon is that Fantine's mother is a huge Les Mis fan. And that Fantine, as a result, hates the musical. As far as thank you, Jen, that Fantine is one of your favorite characters with the weaponized crocheting and the creative insults, based on anyone, me. That is who I would like to be with my ability to insult. So Fantine is like, you know how you always have that really good comeback later? Like
Staircase wit.
the staircase wit? Yeah, Fantine is like she gets all of my staircase wit. Like with some other things, you know, like I don't curse using Catholic martyrs. Like, I'm not Catholic at all, but I have definitely, when I was in high school, I memorized King Lear Act 2, Scene 2, Kent to Oswald, a knave, a rascal, an eater of broken meats, a base, proud, shallow beggarly, three-suited, 100-pound, filthy, worsted stocking knave, a lily-livered, action-taking, whoreson, glass-gazing, super serviceable, finical rogue, a one-trunk inheriting slave, one that would be a bawd in the way of good service, one whom I would beat into clamorous whining if thou deniest the least syllable of thy addition. I did invert something in there. But I have aspired to that level of response, and so I just gave it to Fantine, mammering lobsters.
Last question from the virtual audience is from a fan, Shane, who's wondering what Elsie's been up to while you've been away.
So what has Elsie been up to while I've been away? For people who do not follow me on Instagram, because then you will get to see my cat. He uses buttons to talk. So there's a thing called, I'm just going to do a little backstory for people who don't know what this is, augmented interspecies communication. You can record a button, it has word with whatever words you want. You model it for the animal, so it's not training them like ring the bell, you go outside. It's you push the button, and we're part of a study. I think there's 6,000 animals in the study right now, and this is the largest language acquisition study that's been done. Every other study has been like one gorilla for 20 years and one parrot for 20 years. And so mostly it's citizen science, where we are recording and logging, and then the scientists are looking at the data that we give. But in phase 1 and then phase 2 and 3, they're going in and doing stuff, doing more controlled trials with them. Anyway, so I've checked, I have a camera to see what's going on. While I've been gone, she has asked my husband to play a puzzle. She's asked for several things that he has not paid attention to. He's working, he just doesn't, you know how it is. You're working and your toddler wants something and you ignore them for a minute. It is like having a toddler made of fur. Not like people say fur babies, I'm like, no, that's very wrong. Fur babies you can put down and they stay. Like for toddlers, they get into everything. This one though is heartbreaking. I will tell you because I cannot show the video of it. But it's the kind of interior life that I was not expecting. Oh God, I may cry when I tell you this. So my brother's first wife died this past week. She's remained a friend of the family. They're still good friends. And Elsie, my nephew, came to visit us and was here for like a month and a half, and Elsie became quite attached to him, Eli. There's a video where she says, "Hi, Eli," like asked for what his name was. There's a couple of videos where she asks about Eli after he's gone. Anyway, I'm talking to my niece, and I'm asking, how Eli is doing, and I've said Eli several times. And Elsie goes to her board and says, Eli sat by. And I was just like, how do you know? How do you know that that's what's happening? But she could tell that I was upset, and she could tell that I was talking about Eli, and she's like, and that's like the kind of interior life that I had no idea that my cat had. Because mostly she's a brat. I mean, she's a 4-year-old who would like you to play with her 100% more than you are playing with her. So that's what she's been getting up to lately.
I want to do one quick plug. So much like Mary Robinette has introduced me to several fantastic science fiction authors, the fabulous Anne Leckie has introduced me to a plethora more, including the fabulous Everina Maxwell, who will be in conversation with Anne and Ryan Aoki.
Here, use this so
Yeah.
Because I'm wearing a mask. And we'll be in conversation with the incredible British sci-fi author who writes queer romances in space, Everina Maxwell, on November 5th at 2 p.m.
It's on my calendar.
Oh,
My
yeah,
phone
it's
will
on
tell
mine
me when
too.
I need to be there, so I don't have to remember.
But the also incredible Ryan Aoki will be joining us as the second conversation partner for an amazing virtual only event. So Everina will one day maybe make their way to the US. But for right now, joining us virtually. And let's have another round of applause for our fantastic beautiful evening that I'm glad you all were able to join us for. Reminder that there are books available for sale at the desk, and that the signing will happen in the back of the room. Microphone back to you.
Thank you. All right. So we'll see if this works. So online will be totally random drawing, and Shane will reach out to let you know who you are.
Yes.
And we will mail the gimlet to you, so you'll need to supply us with your mailing address. So go ahead and take out your boarding packages. I'm just going to show the online audience what the boarding package looks like, because again, if you haven't ordered a book and you want, this is not the whole boarding package, that's just the ticket to Mars. These are all unique tickets. You're all going to, in junior suites, so you're going to receive an upgrade in addition to gimlet. So do we have, and since it is random, there's a chance that we don't. But do we have cabin 5020 in the room? Is anyone close to that? All right, well, that didn't work. 5018? Okay, cabin 5. Is your first number 5? Nobody is on the lunar level, that's the problem. Wow, okay. Cabin 4019. 3019. Close.
4-0.
I'm looking at the 9464.
Oh, no. You're looking at the, so cabin number is the red, the ticket number is red. Cabin number is,
We're in the 9-4.
I should have spoken up the first time. I didn't have that exact one.
the 94s are the ticket number.
Oh, I was looking in the right place too.
I can do that instead.
I think we're in the 3 zeros.
3 zeros?
Oh, well, no, we got some all over the place.
A 40? Okay. So who is closest to 4019?
I
Yeah, that-
4012.
4012 without going over was what I was gonna say. Okay, so in our 4s, where are we? 4012? What are your cabins?
4064.
4064.
3045.
No, just in the 4s.
I'm at 4067.
467. 4064 is 467. Okay, I think 4064 is the closest to 4019. Is that right?
4012.
I think
4012.
4012 would be good.
4012 is the closest, yes. Sorry, my brain did 41. Yes, 4012 is the closest. You're correct. Numbers are real hard. So 4012 is our Gimlet winner. And you will receive, sorry about that. I thought that I had that. So you're going to receive an upgrade to the Grand Suite. I know. And with that upgrade, of course, because paper is so expensive, you're also getting the stationery that's in your suite. The captain would also like to invite you to, after the sail away, you also will be invited to the captain's quarters, but I don't encourage you to go. The captain is Icelandic and will absolutely drink you under the table. All right.
Thank you all so much.